Hello and welcome to the Greenway Outdoors Podcast. My name's Kyle.
I'm AJ.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm pumped about this podcast because I've gotten the chance to be on his radio show a few times. I'm saying his because I'm like building up to who we have as a guest. But I've been on his radio show a few times, and if you are in Michigan and you hunt and fish, you're going to recognize the name that I'm going to say pretty quickly because he has been on the radio for a very long time. And I still remember growing up going fishing with my dad on in the morning, going hunting with my dad in the morning, and having this on the radio. This guy's voice and the things that he talked about that morning were the topic of conversation when you came back in at deer camp at lunchtime because he had been talking about this and this during the day or where this was going to be happening to this year. And it's really, really cool that we actually have Mike Avery on our podcast. So, Mike, thank you for joining us today. First guest that anyone's ever clapped for, so that's pretty high.
Yeah, you're blowing me up here, but thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we're really glad to have you. Like I said, you've been on the radio how many years now?
My broadcast career started in 1981 in television, just television news, and I think I've been doing radio now 25 years, something like that.
What was your upbringing like? What was it like for you? What got you into the outdoors?
I grew up on a farm in a hunting and fishing family. My granddad hunted and fished. My dad hunted and fished. I hunt and fish. My son hunts and fishes. My grandkids hunt and fish. I'm pretty typical Michigan family, that's for sure. I was blessed.
Where in Michigan?
West Michigan, northern Kent County, just north of Grand Rapids.
Okay. And I guess what were the big things that you did? Obviously, everyone does deer hunting, like you said, the typical Michigan family. But what were your big ones?
We were pheasant hunters. Back then, we had a lot of pheasants.
Really?
And it was wonderful. We had English setters, and the first animal I ever took, I think, was a rooster pheasant. And out there hunting with my dad and the English setters, and eventually it got to the point where he'd let me go out on my own. And again, we had enough birds where I could screw up and still put a couple birds in the air. And the dogs taught me to hunt as much as my dad did, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had farms and fields and creeks and ponds and rivers, and it was a pretty good way to grow up. It really was.
Yeah. It's so interesting too, is like hearing like someone just going out pheasant hunting that they had enough birds that they could mess up and still kick up a few. I mean,
well,
you don't hear that much anymore.
It sounds like they might be coming back a little bit in the thumb.
Yeah, well,
based on what I've been hearing from some fellow upland people.
In mine and Jeff's experience, now I know that there's some stocking efforts that have been done in the thumb, but we just did a rabbit hunt for one of our vlogs with Ray Hoodie of Hot Shot Outfitters. I don't know if you know who that is. You may or may not, but Ray Hoodie of Hot Shot Outfitters, we went out with him, and we did some rabbit hunting, and I kicked up 4 wild pheasants, 3 roosters, and a hen. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And not only that, we saw a lot of tracks because we were trying to track rabbits. We were running beagles, and we came across quite a few pheasant tracks. We had brand new fresh snow. It was like a perfect scenario. It was awesome. So we're seeing them come back a little bit in the thumb there.
Yeah, I'm glad to see them come back because my first animal that I took was also a rooster pheasant, but it was at one of those things.
Yeah.
I got my hunter's safety, and then we went out and did a farm hunt.
Yeah, and then you just kick one up and shoot it.
The first wild pheasant I ever saw was in Detroit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, flying over the highway.
I think, was that on a trip? Did we all see that together?
No, that might have been.
Because I've also seen that.
Yeah, it happened. There's a lot in Detroit.
There kind of is a lot of wild game in Detroit, like downtown, like the pheasants and stuff do hug down there. But what was exciting about it is seeing actual wild birds just gives you a hope and a dream that in the future it'll be there. Recently, though, I don't know where it is in the legislation, and you might know, Mike, as far as the coyote hunting, it sounds like they're trying to push for it to no longer be year round. What are your thoughts on that? Honestly, and truthfully too, is like typically when I'm doing one of these podcasts, I kind of feel, I don't know how to explain it, but I kind of feel like my opinion matters. But you have been a voice in my head for so long that it's like I'm almost asking you to make sure that I'm right. if that like that's what's going on in my head, if that makes sense. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, you give me more credit than I deserve, I'll tell you that. But last Thursday, a week ago today, the NRC voted to cut our Michigan coyote hunting season back to 9 months. They did that despite the fact there was no sound biological scientific evidence to do so. They did that based on the optics. I hate that word, the optics, the perception that year-round coyote hunting, hunting during the season when they have their pups, they were worried about the perception of that to the anti-hunters. In my opinion, this is a huge mistake. It's a red flag. It really gets me nervous. I talked at length about this on this weekend's radio show. This is a big deal. And it opens up a can of worms. I hate cliches, but it's a bad precedent to have these people in the NRC making a decision like that for nothing more than the perception. I mean, back in 96, we worked so hard to pass Proposal G, which called for sound scientific wildlife management, and now they just completely ignore it. I'm very concerned about it, and I'm really pretty upset about it, pretty mad about it too. How dare a group that is appointed by the governor, so obviously there are political connections there, how dare that group blatantly disregard what they are charged with doing? And we're not California, we're not Colorado, but this is the first step in that direction.
Dang. I was going to say this is interesting you're bringing that up and talking about it because of what just happened to me the other day when I went and spoke at U of M Flint. I went and spoke to a club at U of M Flint, and the club is for people who want to eventually work in the outdoors, whether that's biology or conservation of some sort. And because
they asked him to speak, by the way.
Yeah,
they asked him.
So I went and I talked, and I went there with the mindset of these people want to get into potentially our Michigan DNR or our biology programs. I said to them, through our experience, other states have really sound ways of running their DNR, where it's a lot of the laws are based purely on biology. For example, Bret High from Idaho is the one who really explained this to us, that their governor kind of has the mindset of if you want to place a rule or a law in place, you need to be willing to take away two, which whether that's real or not, I don't know, but it's kind of a figure of speech of like, be really sure what you're doing makes sense. And I explained that to the club, and I said that Michigan is going in a weird direction where we're kind of just doing things and for, like you said, the optics. And the professor that was sitting in the back of the classroom started to rinse me out, saying that's not the way it works, and then telling me I'm wrong based on my experience talking to other DNR biologists from other states. And I didn't argue with her. I just said that's interesting. I think we should talk about that more. I'd like to talk to you about that later. I never did.
We should have her on the podcast.
Yeah, we should have her. Let me at her.
But it was just interesting because she says that she's worked with the Michigan biologists, and that's not what happens. They don't make decisions like that.
Oh.
But this is a good example of that happening.
Yeah, we don't have the dove hunt. We don't have the crane hunt. We don't have all these different things.
That's gaslighting.
Yeah,
for sure.
That is gaslighting.
It's that one small step toward the end where you don't need to hunt.
Right. Well, and that's the whole thing. We did we'll jump back to coyotes in a second, but moving to California. Obviously, you said we're not California for a reason, because California is kind of like the staple for the other side, if you will. Well, in that case, in California, a few years ago, I covered this story. They got rid of trapping because, and the real reason was because there wasn't that much interest in trapping. They only sold something like 18 licenses the last year. So it wasn't enough money to justify the DNR's spend on it, like to manage it. So they're like, to manage it costs more than we're getting for the licenses. It's now a liability. Boom, gone. And now it's gone. And I think that's one of the things here where hunters really need to stand up and have a very large voice about this whole coyote thing, because it's almost like you're giving in to part of what the other side is saying just to kind of keep the peace, as if the people on the other side are like going to settle there. You know what I mean? And like you said, for the optics. And it's just not the case. And in this case, I think hunters should be a lot louder about it. And thank God we have you talking about it, and obviously we're talking about it now. But I think hunters need to be a lot louder about it because this is a real problem because, like you said, it's not necessarily that, like, do people coyote hunt all 12 months of the year? Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't really matter, though. It's the idea of the slippery slope is like as we start to give in, and like you said, it's all about, well, you don't need your guns anymore. It's a little tin hat, for some people, but I genuinely believe that we have laws in Michigan, such as the bait ban, such as, if your bow case isn't zipped up all the way, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get a ticket. There's all these difficult things that make it hard to hunt well in Michigan that we keep putting in place. We don't have a dove season like everybody else. All these things, because if we can keep making it more difficult and we can keep taking things away little piece by piece, less and less people will hunt, less and less people will have interest, and then at some point, well, you guys don't, you let enough wolves go that take out the rest of the deer population. You know what? You guys don't need guns to hunt anymore, so you don't really need guns. And I really think that that's the long play of the whole other side.
You are very wise for being so young.
Thank you. Yeah.
I feel like I'm listening to a younger version of myself talk.
Well,
all you do is shave your head now. Yeah. You'll be there.
I got that part.
Yeah, Jeff took the shaved head part, so we're good. But yeah, I just feel like that's the slippery slope that we're on. As far as the jumping back to the coyote specific and kind of touching on what Ryan was saying, in Idaho, we had the opportunity to work with Bret High. Now, Bret High is a biologist there, and he's got a really high title. I don't know what it is, but he's got a really high title with their
lead biologist.
This is his last name.
Yeah, with their fish, with their fish and game.
We have nothing but good things to say about Bret.
Yeah,
he's an amazing man.
And we got to talking while we were ice fishing, and we were out there, and we started asking questions. I'm like, Bret, I'm spending all this time with you, and I really like you, and I like. He's explaining that, like, they do surveys every year, and they base all of their, within reason, all of their work and projects go towards what the hunters and fishermen say they care about in those surveys. And they take all that into account, and they very literally take into account where they tally it up, make decisions, and announce this is what we're seeing in the results, so this is what we're going to do about that. Here's how we're spending the money. It's beautifully run. These people deeply care, and we're telling them, we're like, we're not allowed to hunt doves, and they were laughing. I'm like, I explained the whole crane law where if, you should, you can get kill tags on your farm, and then you have to burn the meat because you're not allowed to eat it, and the deer bait ban and all these different things. And he said, what I have found, because he's like he's very particular with his words. He's careful. He goes, he's probably what? Brett's probably 48, 50, something like that. Yeah. He goes, what I have found is in states that have really well-run Department of Natural Resources or fish and game departments are typically biologist-run. And what I think Michigan and other states are like is they're very police force-run. So it's managed like we're going to get you to follow those rules as opposed to the biology relationship. When we saw people walking out on the lake to go ice fishing too, the DNR there stopped the people to ask them what they were seeing, how they were doing, if they were happy with what they were finding, if they had any concerns. That was the conversation. I've never been stopped like that in Michigan. My conversation's been very different. Now, I love the DNR, and the whole goal of our show is to sell more hunting and fishing licenses to people in other demographics than the white male over the age of 55, which won't be buying fishing licenses in 15 to 20 years. My whole goal, sell more licenses. But also, like, the laws have to make sense. The laws have to make sense.
I think we have a lot of arbitrary fish and game laws. There's no doubt about it. And I also believe that sooner or later, anybody who spends enough time outdoors in Michigan is going to break a hunting or fishing law. It's like driving. If you spend enough time behind the wheel, eventually you're going to break a driving law. You're going to speed a little bit. You're not going to come to a complete stop. You're not going to use your turn signal. And I'm not talking about people who go out after dark with a spotlight and intentionally shoot trophy bucks. But, we've got laws that if you come back to the truck to have lunch, you can't lay your shotgun across your tailgate when you're upland bird hunting because you've got an uncased gun in a motor vehicle. Yeah, those types of things are absolutely ridiculous. I'm involved in a little bit of a fight right now with trying to get more rods for Great Lakes trolling anglers, just as a way of increasing recreational opportunities. I mean, people have less time these days to be on the water. So why not maximize the opportunities? People say, well, you're going to hurt the resource. Baloney. If the resource is still protected by the daily creel limits and the size limits of the fish, recreational anglers are never going to hurt the resource. So having unnecessary laws like how many rods you can use to troll with on the Great Lakes and things like that. Yeah, I put your efforts in other areas. Absolutely.
Yeah, switch the focus to things that matter. Those are the things that concern me, and those are the things that I want to see, because I love this state. When people talk about we travel all over the place, I mean, we went through the map. We got one of those ones where we can put pictures in every state we've been to. We've been to 42 as a group, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I genuinely would not want to live anywhere else. I love having all 4 seasons. I love the winter activities. I mean, we've got snowboarding, ice fishing, snowmobiling, tapping maple trees. We've got turkey hunting. We've got all kinds of things to do in the spring. We've got salmon runs, steelhead runs. We've got it all.
I love when we go down south and people are like, and you can just walk out on the water in the wintertime? Like, yeah, we can. You can come up. And only one group has taken us up on that.
Yeah. People are real sketched out by ice fishing. They're like, oh, it's going to be cold. I'm like, we have a shanty. It's like 75 in there. It's so nice.
I'm in a T-shirt and I'm a little warm.
The one of them has a TV. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's like, it is not bad. Do you get into ice fishing at all?
I used to be, and then I realized it was far more work than I was interested in putting into it.
It's a lot of work.
I can go out on Saginaw Bay in the summertime on my boat and catch all the fish I want on a nice warm summer day. And to me, it's just more fun. Now, I respect ice fishermen. I understand that for a lot of people, it is their preferred way to fish. It's just not for me. It's like waterfowl hunting. Waterfowl hunters, to me, are one of the most dedicated, hardcore groups out there. But it's just not for me. We're lucky. You go back to Michigan. I love this state too. We're lucky that you can't do everything Michigan has to offer. So what I do is I pick my passions. I like to turkey hunt. I like to bear hunt. And I like to fish for walleye, and I kind of concentrate on those 3 things.
For the turkey hunting, what are your plans this year?
I'm excited just thinking about it. I love turkey hunting so much. I've got some property around here that I have access to. I like to bow hunt for turkeys. This year I'm going to be out with a crossbow, but I've taken them with a recurve. I've taken them with a compound. I've taken them with a crossbow. And my style of turkey hunting is, because on these properties, I kind of know where the birds are going to be traditionally. So I like to set up in a blind, put some decoys in front of me, call a little bit, be patient, just wait them out and ambush them. It's a lot like deer hunting for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much how we grew up turkey hunting is just like that, except for the whole shooting them part took about 6 years for us to get dialed in. Our dads did deer hunting, ice fishing, and bluegill fishing, and that's what our dads taught us. But that's what they did. They picked their passions, whereas Jeff and I were like, you can hunt ducks. You can hunt birds.
We'll just be a little mediocre at all the things and do all of them.
That's pretty much. So we landed on just being okay at everything, but not great at anything. Yeah. But that's how we kind of got started turkey hunting. I've got I really like turkey hunting because it's the one animal. I shouldn't say that, but it's the most exciting for me on the food aspect, just because turkey is so good. It is so good. What is your favorite recipe that you do? Like when you shoot your gobblers, what's your plan with them?
Just go back a step. I love turkeys, but the thing I love about turkey hunting is the interaction. I love the fact that you can have a conversation with them and they respond. Oh, I like them on a grill. I
really?
Like most anything grilled. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a healthier.
I got spoiled though, right? Because my good friend Chef Dixie Dave Miner, wild game chef extraordinaire, I've spent so many hours at his restaurant that anything I cook at home now is kind of disappointing compared to what Dave.
That's pretty cool. What does he cook wild game specifically, or like what is his?
He does. He just retired. He had a restaurant in Birch Run, but I put him on, I think, the second or third television show I ever did back in the early 90s or whatever it was, and he was on every TV show. He's still on every radio show. He's just a very interesting guy, and I mean, he's an expert. He can cook up anything. He's one of those guys that with his sauces and everything, I think he could cook up an old hunting boot and you'd probably enjoy it. But,
yeah. The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Savage Arms, better comes standard. Nosler Ammunition, world's finest bullets, ammunition, and brass. Boss shot shells, superior made and American made. Carlson's choke tube's the only choke tube we've ever purchased. Onyx Hunt, know where you stand.
If you want to be here, it all starts here. At Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, we have the widest selection of the quality brands you love to get you outdoors. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our friendly, knowledgeable outfitters will help you find the right products for your next trip. Shop with confidence with our low price guarantee. Plus, club members save even more on great gear with exclusive member pricing. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, voted America's best outdoor retailer.
For every purpose, for every path, for every soul, for every season, there's a ram.
Legends aren't born, they're created. Introducing Impulse from Savage, the all-new American-made straight-pull bolt-action rifle. Unmatched innovation, fast reloads, maximized efficiency, repeatable accuracy. Welcome to American Straight Pull. Only from Savage.
I love the emphasis you guys put on the wild game side of things and the consuming side of things too, bringing it full circle. I appreciate and I respect what you guys are doing. I think to see guys of your generation take this attitude, work so hard to get this across, you have much respect from me, guys. You really do.
Well, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Deeply. Like I said, you were a big inspiration for it. You were one of the people that I looked to that made it realize it's actually possible we could make it. You know what I mean? It's something that we could actually do for our living. Because a lot of people told us that was dumb. A lot of people told us it was dumb. So there's only a few of us that have been able to pull it off. But you were one of the shining stars that showed us that we actually could. And it was also neat that you came from Michigan. We thought it was funny is like Mike Avery, Steve Ranella, us. Like Michigan, we breed them here. If you want to start a outdoor media company, we're the Ted Nugent. We did it. We're the breeders here, for that. But I'm excited too about spring walleye fishing. Do you still do the Detroit River? I know you're big into Angler Quest, and I know you're big into trolling, which I find interesting because you said you don't like ice fishing because of all the work. But trolling and setting up all those rods and keeping everything straight, not getting everything tied up, that's some work in itself.
It's a different kind of work. It doesn't feel like work.
Okay.
As much as I love to troll, there's nothing like having that rod in your hand when you're jigging for walleye and have that fish hit when you lift it up or when you're dropping it. Yeah. I don't get us down to the Detroit River as much, but now the Saginaw River here in my backyard is open year round. So that's an excellent springtime fishery. I was out there, before it turned cold again. I was out there when it was still nice and warm, and it felt like it was a June day out there, and how neat it was to be out there fishing a river that when I first started working in television news many, many years ago, the Saginaw River was so dirty that it didn't freeze. And then when it started to clean up a little bit and we started to get a little bit of ice, kids would go out there and play on the ice. Nobody was fishing it yet, but the kids would go down there and play on the ice. And it was such a big deal that people would call Central Dispatch and they'd send a fire rescue crew down there to get those kids off the ice. And now we've got, hundreds, thousands of people fishing that river when we get ice, but in the open water too. It's one, I look at the resurgence of the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery as one of the greatest conservation success stories I've ever seen personally. Another one being the return of eagles. I mean, we have eagles everywhere these days. And the third one I look at is the establishment of turkey hunting in Michigan. To me, those are the three big things that I really think are things we can hang our hat on.
Yeah, you look at, was it 1960, and they were nearly extinct in Michigan. It's one of the stories that I always talk about. We were just at the National Wild Turkey Federation convention. I gave a speech there, and we were talking about Michigan specifically. You look at the fact that they were basically, Jeff's wearing his NWTF hat. They were basically extinct, and we also got to go to South Carolina, where they actually brought some of the ones where they relocated them to Michigan to start establishing that population here again and kind of following the journey. And we did an episode of that you can see on Tubi or History Channel streaming right now, where you can go watch that one. It's episode 3 is the turkey hunt. The Great Eastern Turkey is what it's called. But yeah, I seeing that resurgence is awesome. As far as in the Saginaw River, I know how to fish the Detroit River and the St. Clair River. So in the St. Clair, it seems like normally we do the bottom bouncers in the St. Clair River. We do the big gumball jigs with the minnows in the Detroit River. What is the tactic that's preferred in the Saginaw River?
Drifting with the current, jigs, minnow head, plastic bodies. But the thing about the Saginaw is when I go down to the St. Clair River or Detroit River, to me, the current is intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that type of current in the Saginaw River. It's a shorter river. We don't have the volume of water. And sometimes if we get a north wind, the current will actually flow the opposite direction.
Oh.
So our main thing is we can use smaller jigs. You could use a 1/2 ounce jig, a 3/8 ounce jig. Just drift along with the current, bounce bottom, just like you do in the Detroit River. You will see people sometimes trolling the edges of the channel. That can be productive. I watched a guy last time I was out there. They got into a school of big pike, and I'm talking big, like 35 to 40 inch fish. And they caught 15 fish within like a 9-iron of the boat launch right there. It was so I love that fishery because, again, when I first moved to this area, it didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a world-class fishery.
That is really special.
Have you had any run-ins with spear fishermen yet?
Well, what do you mean by run-ins?
What is your experience, with, if any, with spear fishermen? Because we're all amped up because we're going to go to Hawaii to do it, and we have all this stuff now, so we want to try to find a place to go do it.
There's parts there's parts of the Great Lakes where you can actually spearfish for pike and stuff.
Absolutely. The only experience I have is talking to John Dirtka.
Okay.
The guy who started the whole spearfishing craze in Michigan. And he's an interesting guy too, because he took a passion like you guys, was willing to work for it, and he single-handedly walked that through the approval process to the DNR and the NRC. It's pretty cool what he did.
That's really cool.
Followed his videos. I've had him on the radio show a bunch of times. I've never done it with him. I think I'm too old to learn how to free dive at this point, but the way those guys do it is so impressive. And listen, I don't have any problems if they take a few walleye. People said, "Oh, they're going to take all the walleye." They don't take any walleye. There's not that many of them out there. But I respect what they do. I think it's cool what they do, and I think what you guys are going to do in Hawaii, that's way cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're kind of on a spearfish craze right now. This week so far, we've all been getting scuba certified. And we bought the underwater housings we want to up our production value. We just want to get it to that next level. And the way we can do that is instead of worrying about GoPros and stuff near the boat, we want to be diving down and filming fish while they're fighting, not next to the boat, but way out there. So we're getting all the scuba equipment. So when someone gets a fish in, you're getting dunked into the water, and we're getting it filmed that way. And we're going out for giant tuna off the coast of Massachusetts, which is apparently the most dangerous fishery as it is, because, like, 5 people die a year doing it. So we're going to add scuba diving to that. And then we're doing the spearfishing in Hawaii. But in order to do that, we got to have, really good camera equipment down there in order to hold the quality that we demand. So we've been getting scuba certified this week, and now we feel a lot more comfortable now, going through the certification process and stuff like that. We've got our big test on Monday where we've got to do dives and stuff. And then when we get to Hawaii, we literally have to do 2 days of our final certification because you have to do open water dives to get certified. And then, like, the next day, we're hunting mouflon sheep for 3 days, and then we're spearfishing and filming with it. So we're going to be cranking while we're there.
And aren't you also, I think you told me about this on the radio show, aren't you going wild cow hunting?
Yes, we are. Yeah, so
I've thought about that ever since you told me. That is one of the coolest sounding hunts I've ever heard of.
yeah, so it's supposed to be, they say it's 4 times more dangerous than a grizzly bear hunt. So that's what got us interested. It's supposed to be insane because you've got these giant cows. They got out about 150 years ago. They live up in the mountains. They don't see people ever. And when they do, they're used to being the biggest, baddest thing around. And imagine a big bull that's aggressive, and they'll go right after you. So the right now, apparently, the other thing is, like, we've learned in Hawaii is, like, everyone's telling us something different. So we've got one person telling us that they made it illegal to archery hunt for them now, not because it's, like, unethical, but because people are just getting killed when they do it. They shoot them right through the vitals, cow catches them, kills them. So it's like they're saying it's illegal, but then other people said it was legal. We're thinking high-powered rifles anyways, but you're supposed to do a headshot is the only way to do it, because they said you can put a 300 Win Mag through the heart and lungs, and they're not going to be dead for a while, and they're going to be real upset with you. So that's got us written all over it. I'm more excited about the meat part, though. I mean, that's legitimate ribeyes right there.
You talk about a grass-fed beef right there is the true test, the epitome of that.
Yeah, I'm actually leaning towards, depending on what we see.
I was gonna say a female might be
yeah, I
better.
was just gonna say, like, it would be pretty cool to get a female instead, just for the sake of the meat. You know what I mean?
A 5-year-old bull.
Yeah,
That's still intact.
yeah, it'll be a little rough, but imagine the mount.
Yeah.
I could choke down the meat for the mount. But yeah, we're also doing Mouflon sheep while we're there, which should be pretty interesting. And then we got re-signed for a second season on History Channel, and we're going to be hunting. We did a bear episode in Maine, which was very productive. We did a pheasant hunt in South Dakota, which was so cool. Seeing that many birds. I mean, there was one area where we got to where we were having lunch, and it was a freshly cut field. And everything settled down once we had been there a while. We were eating, and we weren't too loud. And all of a sudden, we just see pheasant come in. I'm like, oh, there's one in the field. And then another one, and another one, and another one. At one point, there was probably 100 in there. Just one at a time coming in, feeding, going, doing their own thing. And I was like, this is heaven. You know, this is absolutely fantastic. Mike, as far as, obviously, you've seen the progression and the changes since 1981 of, like, what's gone on in the outdoor industry itself, especially in Michigan. What are your biggest concerns looking ahead now? Because, you know, you've probably learned so much over the years that you can think about, you know, this is what I'm worried about for the future. This is, and see that.
I think for the first time in my life, I am genuinely concerned about the future of our outdoor heritage. And I never thought when I was a kid growing up that I would say that. I think, going back to this NRC decision with the coyote hunt, I think we're seeing that it can actually happen. It could happen. It is happening here in our state. We've got political appointees that are making, obviously, the wrong biological decision, and how they even have the guts to do that, I'm not sure. But you know, on my show, I'm always talking about the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle. I talk about how in Michigan, it's such a big part of our state's collective heritage, but also for many of us, our personal family histories. And, you know, and again, I talk about my family history, and to me, that's important. It's how we identify ourselves as Michiganders for many of us. And when I see the declining number of hunters, that's a concern, obviously. Our hunters and anglers getting older, that's a concern. That's why I love to see you guys getting so passionate about this. But, and the anti-hunters, I mean, they're always going to be out there. We know that. They're absolutely crazy. They have no touch with reality, but they're very vocal. They have more money than God, and they're willing to use it. Those things we can all deal with. But when we see the people who are entrusted to help us manage these populations, these wildlife populations and fisheries, now not supporting us, this is what really gets me concerned. That and the infighting among hunting and fishing groups. The backstory of this Michigan coyote situation is, it was originally proposed by a hunting group, hunting or trapping group, I don't know, but a group of outdoorsmen. That's what got this whole thing going, and look what it blew up into.
What would be their incentive?
They have to be planted. I mean, that's
Yeah, it sounds like plants to me.
Patsies.
yeah.
Yeah, like I can't even think of an angle.
I've spent a lot of time looking at this, talking to people who claim to have been in on the initial meetings, and I don't know really what I should say, but I don't know. I'm quite confused by it. I'm confused and frustrated, and I shake my head about it.
One point that you made about the in hunting community fighting, I would say for our first 7 years, our biggest opposition was other hunters and fishermen. For whatever reason, anything we would post, we would get a lot of flack for. It could be the dumbest thing. Everyone knows everything, and everyone knows better than you, and everyone's the greatest, and everyone's the best hunter ever, and I've never even claimed to be right about everything. But that was kind of what we saw in the first 7 years. Once we launched on History Channel, we saw a complete flip on that, where I would say we saw a humongous increase in support from hunters and fishermen, a huge increase, where it was a very small minority were giving us any trouble. But what we saw is a giant increase on the vegan community, the PETA community, and I will tell you,
An anti-God.
They really hate that I love God. They really hate that. You wouldn't believe the hurtful things people have said, and I mean it bounces right off of me. I kind of enjoy it. It's like our favorite is like we'll read them, and the real mean ones get us to laugh. So it's like you can't hurt us. But
It took some thought
Yeah,
to
wow.
put that together. Wow.
It's like I did you wouldn't call it a sermon because I'm not a pastor. I guess a message at a church wild game dinner. And we recorded it for a vlog and posted it. And if you go look, there's hundreds of comments, death threats, and people hating me for like a guy. And what I've come to realize, Mike, so for the first 7 years, it was mostly the hunters that gave us crap. So when I would hear people say things like, a vegan said, why don't you go to the store and buy meat there where no animals had to die to feed you? And it's like, no one actually says that. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I have news for you. I have come to find out in this last year that they do say that. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, some of the things people would say, we had on, you might get a kick out of it if you're out on the boat or something like that, want to listen to it. We did a podcast a few episodes ago with a very prominent vegan. And I did not study for it. I did not prepare in any way. I just went in fresh. And he came in, and because he had been one of the vocal people that rallied a group of people that hate us on Facebook. So I had him on to debate me. I said, let's be nice to each other too. Let's not fight. Let's get along. Let's have a very civil conversation. We had it. And what I will say is this.
You did a good job.
Yeah. What I will say is
pretty civil.
Ryan dressed up as a judge from like the 1700s with like the curly hair and stuff. It was so funny. But we have the guy on. We debate him. And what was interesting to me, Mike, was the evolution of the ideas from the other side that has come to be. It used to be just don't do this and don't do that. And it was very plain and simple. I mean, they're advocating that we release all of the farm animals that are in captivity right now, release them. They will go out and become feral again, and they'll just eat grasses.
And keep to themselves.
And they'll keep to themselves, and they won't eat crops, and they won't negatively impact other animals in any way, shape, or form. They won't eat crops, so we'll all be able to just live off the crops that are there because we won't be feeding them anymore, and there'll be plenty of habitat and food for everything. I'd never even heard that proposed before, but it was ideas like that. I obviously knocked it into an oblivion with common sense and, what that would actually progress to. But what I'm seeing is like this new wave of argument that is not well thought out, but it's new. And that is being what's being pushed on our pages all the time is release all the farm animals, don't kill any animals, and
don't hurt them.
Yeah, don't hurt them. Yeah, they say
you can eat roadkill if you want.
Yeah, they did say that.
Yeah,
they did say I could have roadkill, and that would be fine.
Roadkill is allowed.
I've done it. But it was fresh.
Yeah.
But that is what we're seeing is like these new forms of argument. And I was wondering, with your page or with your following, do you see mostly the Do you get pushback from hunters, or do you get pushback from this new group?
Both.
Okay.
Both. But I expect it from the antis. That doesn't bother me. In fact, I kind of welcome if I can get them riled up and get them mad. I kind of like. But it does bother me and I don't think I'm the target I used to be, and I don't know if it's because, to be honest with you, I don't have a TV show, maybe don't have the prominence I used to, or maybe it's just they know that they're barking up the wrong tree and nothing's going to change. I'm not going to change what I say based on what they say. But why is it that with the other side, the antis, and I have no problem with non-hunters, God bless them.
Yeah.
You know, that's fine. But the antis, why is it that they feel so determined to mandate and dictate to us how we should live and what we should do? When we look at them and say, okay, you're an anti, but we're not going to force you to become a hunter. We're not going to spend our life savings, and we're not going to collect funds to force you to become a hunter. But yet they feel they need to force us to become non-hunters, anti-hunters. Why is it? Why can't they just let us live in our own world and do what we want?
Right.
You know, we continue our history and tradition and continue to be stewards of the resource that we are. Why do they feel the need to control our lives? That's what really sticks in my craw.
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, your adventure starts here. Savage Arms, Nosler Ammunition, Bosch Shot Shells, Wilderness Athlete, fuel for the rugged, Tracker Boats, fish the finest, Eagle Fishing, designed for the savvy angler, Rufus Teague Barbecues, Snacks, and Spices, Rectech Grills, it's more than a grill, it's a way of life, Sea-Doo, make your own waves, LEM Products, motivating people to hunt, process, and prepare their own food, Quiet Cat, the leader in electronic bikes for hunting, fishing, camping, and exploring. Consistency. That's what you aim for with every practice shot. So when you're out in the field, you get that same consistency every shot. With Carlson's choke tubes, consistency is what you'll get. Our choke tubes are long-lasting, high quality, and made right here in the USA. Carlson's choke tubes, pattern tested, hunter approved. Find out more at choketube.com.
Are you anxious to get going? Knowing that the clock is ticking and time truly is the most precious commodity in the world? Then you, my friend, are in good company.
I mean, it's no secret either where you and I stand politically, and on the other side, it's the same thing there too. Is that push to control our lives? It's a tie-in in every way. It's their fundamental, and they grow up, they go to school, and they're told by a teacher, you need to get good grades so that you can go to college, and then they get good grades, they go to college, they put themselves in massive amounts of debt, and then they do that, and then after that, they say, okay, now you got to get good grades in college so that you can get a good job to go work for somebody else, and you follow the rules. And they say, okay, so everybody has to follow these rules, and everyone has to follow this. And when people break out of that and they create their own whatever, you might go to college, but you might do this differently, you might do that differently, or you live outside of what I call the matrix, it drives them bonkers. I mean, they hate it. They want everyone to be eating what they're eating. They want everyone to be doing what they're doing and thinking the way they're thinking. And if you don't, you're public enemy number one. At the end of the day is I saw something where it was when Australia was giving up all their guns, and their original push was just anyone who wants to bring in their guns can. And you had all these people saying, all these mass shootings going on and stuff like that, I'm going to be a good Samaritan. I'm going to turn my guns in because I'm going to help stop mass shootings. But at the end of the day, if you weren't going to go do a mass shooting, your guns weren't going to ever, that is such a belief that the guns will spontaneously do it on their own. Like, just the existence of these guns may create that. Yeah. And it's not true, but it's like that mentality of like, follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the matrix, do what you're told. And that is, pretty much part of the reason I've told you on our podcast before, or when I was on your podcast as well, is like part of the drive comes from I want to sell more hunting and fishing licenses because when the 55 and older group can't buy them anymore, we're going to lose 60% of the funding. And that will be, in my opinion, that is when all the devils will attack. That is when the swarm will come. In 10 to 12 years, there will be a swarm. And if I haven't built myself up mentally, physically, spiritually, and this group hasn't built themselves up the same way, we won't be ready for it. But the biggest fight for the outdoor industry will be in 10 to 15 years from now because the funding will go away. It will become a detriment unless I can give the backfill of the millennials and Generation Z right now. So I have to work to fill the backfill and build my mind right so that I'm ready for that fight because I do believe in 10 to 15 years it's coming for us. As soon as that funding is gone and we're some sort of liability to the government as far as like it costs more to run these things than people are participating, gone. And that's when the fight will come. That's what scares the hell out of me. But that's also what wakes us up every day. In addition to that, by being in this fight and feeling like we're working towards something every day, it does give us a purpose. And the idea, I can't imagine for us working for anyone else now.
No.
You know, everyone in this room owns a piece of the company. And for being very conservative, we kind of run our company like communists. But
It works in small numbers.
yeah, it does work in small numbers. But we all have a piece of it, and we all wake up and we all fight like that. But again, you know, I thank you for that because riding in that car with my dad and going deer hunting, a big piece of this had to do with the fact that he took me, and a big piece of this had to do with your voice and hearing Ted Nugent's voice and watching Michigan Out of Doors and experiencing those things, you know, building that foundation. Just like going to church every Sunday as a kid is what helped build that foundation so that, you know, later on in life I could turn back to it. So I do thank you for that.
Well, again, I think you're being very generous, and I appreciate that. But I was going to say, I know deep inside what you guys are doing is the right thing. And I know that it's far more important than what it appears to be at the surface level. I get it. I get what you're saying. And I will say I'm happy for you guys because as a guy who's been doing this a long time, and I still love it. I still get up every morning and say, thank you, Lord, for allowing. Oh.
That was perfectly timed. Couldn't have been better.
The timing was
Edit that out, will
amazing.
you?
Yeah. I was like, man, he's getting into it. What a vibe.
No, to be able to do it this long, you have to have a passion for it and a love for it. And it's obvious you guys have the same thing. And because of that, I'm convinced you are going to make a difference. And this 10, 15 years down the road, when I'm completely out of the picture, and it's guys like you and what you're doing is going to make the difference. So God bless you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for inspiring it. Thank you for coming on our podcast too. Yeah. I know you put in a lot of time and you put out a lot of content every single week. So anyone, even if you don't live in Michigan, I highly recommend going to check out his Facebook, check out all of his pages, his weekly radio show. It's just MikeAveryOutdoors.com.
Best place to go, yeah.
Yep, and you can find all your information there. But thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy and you got walleye to catch, but I appreciate it.
And turkeys to shoot.
That's
soon.
right. That's right.
And if we ever get ice again, I know you said you don't really like putting in the work, but we'll be out there. If you ever want to come out and just not do the work and it's all set up for you, we'll have you.
You know, we do that.
that I could do.
I'll tell you what, we got a couple late. I don't even want to promise though, because it's like, man, we didn't get ice the last 2 years.
Yeah.
We could do an On the Ice podcast.
That would be really fun.
That would be awesome.
Let's do that. Let's do a rain check that we'll do an On the Ice podcast. We'll have it all set up. We'll have lunch ready. We'll have the grill going on the ice. We'll have tip-ups flying. You just got to show up an hour after we do, and your timing will be perfect. And then you can come hang out with us for a little bit.
I think hanging out with you guys would be fun no matter where it is.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Fun
Thanks
stuff.
so much for tuning into the Greenway Outdoors podcast. You can find our main TV show, the Greenway Outdoors TV show. We're not just a podcast and a vlog on thehistorychannel.com,
Actual
as
TV
well
show.
as Carbon TV, Roku, everything like that. We are going to have season 2 coming out later this year on the History Channel. We're filming it right now. Very excited to share it with you. but we want to interact with our audience every week through our video podcast and our vlog, which is why we create that content for you. So if there's something you'd like to see, we'd hope to hear from you so you can tell us what it is. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay green.